Vamos a intentar analizar todo esto con la ayuda de Eric Lynch, que es Managing Director y miembro del comité de inversión de Scharf Investments. Eric, thank you so much for being here in Negocios Televisión.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I wanted to ask you about the FOMC meeting. It has already begun. The market expects a 50 basis points rate hike. But I wanted to ask you if there is any possibility Powell won't deliver and he will surprise the market.
I doubt that seriously. There's been a lot of jawboning by Powell and other Fed officials over the last several weeks trying to prepare the market for a pretty front-end loaded interest rate increase. So 50 basis points seems like the appropriate level that we'll see.
Do you expect Jerome Powell to play down the rate hikes along the year after the GDP data that we had last week?
I doubt that. The issue is that inflation is still tremendously high. So even if you take out energy, supply chain constraints, kind of driven inflation over the last several months, you're starting to get inflation into more persistent, durable kind of areas of the economy like wages and rents. And so there's going to have to be kind of a sustained increase of interest rates to slow that down.
We will also be looking closely about what the Fed says about the balance sheets. Could the Federal Reserve begin the reduction of the balance sheet in this meeting, in the May meeting, or will we have to wait a little more?
You know, all indications are that they will announce something following this meeting this week regarding that balance sheet reduction. You know, the minutes of the March meeting were such that, you know, the indications would be for roughly a $100 billion cap on monthly drawdown. To put that into perspective, that's double the $50 billion cap from a few years ago. So it is certainly, you know, going to be a faster than previously seen reduction.
I wanted to ask you as well, Eric, if the Fed is no longer really looking after the market, and that's why we have seen probably this decline in prices in the stock market and this volatility. Is that the reason why?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, there's been a 40-year history, a tremendous phenomena of the U.S. Fed being able to stimulate the economy, keep full employment, keep asset prices elevated via this really low interest rate policy and also the balance sheet increase. And so they could do that with impunity to date because it had no effect on this great moderation of price levels over the last 40 years. This is different. This is the first time in decades the Fed has restraints on its ability to keep full employment and keep assets higher. Look, the issue the real issue here is that you know, the average American household only owns $40,000 of stocks. And so inflation to them is a much bigger issue than asset price levels. You know, not being able to buy food, get gas, heat and cool their homes. And so the Fed is pretty serious about price level, you know, mitigation. And there's two mandates to the Fed. One is full employment, and the other is price stability. And so clearly the Fed is acknowledging that they have been behind the curve on managing the price level. Keep in perspective that the consumer price index, most recent print was 8.5%. And we're still only looking right now until these minutes are announced, 25 to 50 basis point Fed funds rate. And so there's still a wide disconnect, even if you know, inflation starts moderating, you know, as the year progresses.
We'll have to see what the Fed says about inflation. Do you think Powell will say anything about inflation not increasing so rapidly anymore?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they acknowledge that we may have seen peak inflation, and that's a slight positive for sure. But I expect it to be a continuation of what we've been hearing from all these different Fed officials in interviews recently, which is, look, we were wrong. Inflation is more persistent across different areas of the economy, and we've got to take this seriously.
Eric, thank you so much for being here in Negocios Televisión. Eric Lynch, Managing Director y miembro también del comité de inversión de Scharf Investments. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.